Moin moin and hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another IM review, and today for you I have the UZR Defiant in cooperation with Zeos. Yes, we are taking a look at another influencer IM here, and we check out what this thing can or can't do. First, this thing clocks in at $100 and that's the packaging here. It is generally looking as you expected, and what I do like about it, again, we have print and frequency response here, so you know what to expect. And we tackle later on if this actually is what you will be getting or not. But yeah, the box for the price is actually pretty nice. It is opening easy like this. Also this opening, just with light shaking. And then on the inside you'll be greeted with the symbol of the Defiant, which is kind of a heavily stylized eagle. Why? I don't know, doesn't matter. And here you can see the Zeos Corporation thing. Then below that we get greeted with the accessories. And as you can already see here by this plug, yep, this comes with an interchangeable connector. And UZR gives you the 4.4 Pentacon as I have here, and then the 3.5 which I have mounted. And other than this, you do get this carrying case, which is totally okay. You can see it is a bit squishy, but not super squishy. It is brown. The zipper is kind of color matched with a black thing here. I guess this would have been nicer in brown, but probably nobody wants it in brown. And then we come to accessory set that actually is useful. And as you can see here, this is a nice selection of ear tips because, what I also said in my unboxing, let me just flip one tip around here. Whoop. This is a SpinFit style ear tip. So essentially this conforms just a bit better to your ear because it can twist like this. Really nice. And while real SpinFits are definitely a bit better, some reviews that claim you need better ear tips, you don't really need better ear tips. They give you everything you need, which is what I really like about the Defiant, because also the foam tips it comes with is the smaller size. So this should fit for basically all ears, and there's definitely the bigger size lacking here. For a few people among us that have big ear canals, I mean, you can see here this is also not the biggest L size ear tip that it comes with, and this is the only complaint that I would have here, that yeah, maybe an XL or L ear tip that is actually pretty big is missing. But yeah, the S size of this is actually pretty small, so even me with a small ear canal, I have no issues with the included ear tips here. And yeah, as I said, SpinFit type ear tips coming as stock tip at $100 is really nice to see. And other than that, the carrying case also here on the top has a net for your accessories, so basically everything you need. Other than that, you do get this Zeos figurine thing here, not my cup of tea, I will just leave it in as is, and in cleaning cloth. So to sum up here, the packaging accessories for $100 is an amazing package. Having SpinFit types and random silicon and foam and an interchangeable connector at this price is really nice to see. And this is basically upping the accessory games for all other IMs to come in the future. You need to beat this in order to be better. And yeah, next we come to the IM itself, I think, before we then tackle the cable. And chip. This is a bad boy. I have the green color here, which is, I choose it as random, honestly. The other one is kind of iridescent pearl. Not super my cup of tea, but yeah, this, I want to say, this emerald one definitely a bit more. And in real life, it's not really captured by the camera so well. It's a bit more vibrant. This here looks a bit darker. In real life, it's a bit more vibrant. And I do like the optics of this generally pretty much. I could live without the silver accents here, but I mean, yeah, that's how it is. In terms of details, this is also in the summary already, it's an absolutely fine build IM. There isn't much to complain outside of this pressure hole here, as you can see. Don't feel that confident about the integration of this thing here. It is glued in here, but you can see some glue around it. I'm not sure how well that's visible in camera. And because it's not flat integrated, you do feel it, and that means potentially if you just throw it in there with other things, this could come out. And the issue with this is not as big as it would be with an IM from the same OEM, which I have also here, the CK2V, I think. This actually is extruding by like 0.5 millimeter, so here it's even worse. But because it's the same OEM, I'm pretty sure I have a better unit in terms of integration of this pressure hole, and I also don't know how efficient it is in actually keeping dust out, because it's not a mesh, it's just this like a square thing, as you can see here. So I'm not the greatest fan of this. But everything else is totally fine. That means here you have an L&R printing at the bottom that is also relatively well readable. Cable we take later on. And then the mesh on the front here seems to be integrated well. I see no glue, it doesn't rock, it seems to be rock solid in here. And that together with the overall like feeling of this not being like that, I want to say like light. I'm not sure if it's solid resin though, but it's definitively not as thin as other IEMs that I have heard. Yeah, this is an absolutely fine build IEM at 100 bucks, so even at 200 bucks I wouldn't have much complaints here. Again, outside of this pressure hole and its valve or whatever you call this. I'm a bit skeptical about this. And yeah, next let's tackle the cable. And as you can see, this is matched for the standard color, which is this iridescent pearl thing, because this thing is like red and blue. And generally, as a summary again, the beginning, I think this is a pretty good cable for 100 bucks, interchangeable connector, and as you can also see, it is pretty damn smooth, just right out of a box, and feels generally well made, and there isn't, again, not much to complain at this price point here. What I do like about it, though, again, is smoothness. Like, really, this is so smooth out of the box. I never had any issues with this, and bringing me into what I don't like is the 3.5 or like the connector here, because this thing, it is screwed on, but it constantly twists loose. Even if you tighten this enough, like into day-to-day life, throwing it in its case of a backpack, yeah, this is just loosening itself very easily over time. And probably also worse with this, because this is so smooth, you need this to be here in order to actually grip it. So that means if this screws off like this, there's nothing to grip on much. So I would have liked to see a better mechanism for this twisting here. But in the details of the cable, this has a strain release. It does release some strain, as you can see here. It should have been a bit longer, in my opinion, to do a better job, but it is what it is. And then the two cores here, these are thicker cores and they are twisted pretty evenly all over. So again, for 100 bucks, it's a really nice cable. Chin splitter is color matched, and then on top the slider here is really nicely working. It has some friction, so you can see I can just move it, but it is enough friction to actually stay in place. So if I just shake it, as you can see here, still rock solid in place. So this is probably the best implemented chin slider I've seen in a long time, and as somebody who would recommend you to use a chin slider because it reduces the noise you get through the cable, this is exactly how it should be. And then the cables on top here, as you can see, is the same thickness, the same two twisted cores inside with this blue and red. And further on top, let's take a look at the ear hook here. Ear hook is on the thicker side of rubberization going on here. Bending radius is about average, not too big, not too small. But the rubber is not that springy. I want to say like medium springy, but not super fast springy. And that combined with the lack of texture around here generally means this cable is really comfortable in day-to-day life. Also, the aluminum cylinder here is nice to see at 100 bucks. What I do miss here is the color indicator on the cable. Because this thing, while having an L&R printing that is well readable, there's no color indicator, and usually colors are a bit easier to see than is R&L. Especially the R printing here not being really contrasting. Yeah, color would have been nice. But again, at 100 bucks this cable, I really don't have many complaints here. This is a good cable, and the main issue here, again, is just the screw mechanism, which I wish would just be a bit better. Okay, so after we tackled the build, let's tackle comfort and fit. And first, let's just give you a round trip over the contours of this before I throw on the measurements. As you can see, for 100 bucks, this is again a nicely shaped IEM. It is not too big, it is not too small. It does extrude, I would say, a bit more than average in terms of length, but it is not a super long inserting IEM, and all of the angles seem to be all right, which you will probably now have seen in the background with my measurements. And the nozzle, while not being small in any way, it also was not huge. And generally I didn't have any issues in terms of comfort with this. For me personally, as I've said multiple times, I do generally like IEMs that don't insert so deep, because for these you can just use a longer tip to just fix that. But putting on a short tip might not always cut it. And with this, I definitely had to use the shortest tips in my disposal to make it fit for me. But I also know that my ear candle is definitively on the shorter side and on the smaller side, generally using SS tips. So I don't think this will be an issue for most people out there. Just keep in mind, if you know you have a short ear canal or small ear canal like me, well, this could be a bit much. But other than this, I could wear this for multiple hours on end with the right ear tip, because yeah, there's nothing much too big in any dimension here. Next, let's take isolation, and because this is semi-custom shell, and as I said, in terms of comfort and fit, it is generally pretty good. It does isolate also pretty good. It is above average, I would say, overall, and with the right tip, you can make this also you can make this work in city center. Albeit I would definitely recommend foam tips for this, because while it is above average isolating to get out the high noise of city center sometimes, you do want the best that you can get, and that is only giving you foamed. Or only possible with foam, I mean. So overall, absolutely fine. It never reaches very good, but borders to good, and yeah, you can definitely use this in all situations. Next, drivability. This thing clocks in at, let me just check it again. I think, yeah, of course I forgot to note it in my review at this point, but it will be in there later on. 109 decibels at 32 ohms. And on paper, again, this is pretty efficient. It is similar to most single DD sets on the market. And to my ear, honestly, this also performs pretty well, even on the cheap Apple dongle. I didn't have any issues with drivability for this, and I think just, again, improving power a bit usually gives you a bit better staging, slightly better details, maybe, but definitely in staging department, again, I noticed a light improvement, and again, also base tactility did improve slightly through better power, but again, like how much power you need, I can't tell you, because something like the Shardening Up 5 or so with its 250 milliwatts absolutely was more than enough to drive this, and something more didn't really yield any improvements to my ear. My desktop setup, the Topping A53 and D53, I couldn't really tell them apart from my other mobile solutions in terms of overall detail retrieval and stuff. So again, just Apple dongle will be absolutely fine. I would probably give this 85 to 90% of what it can, even on the random as Apple dongle. Next, we come to general sound characteristics. And here I will definitely compare this to my benchmark at this $100-something price category, which is the SuperMix 4. And as you can see by measurements, this is definitely going in a bit of a V-shaped direction. It is not super V-shaped, but it has some mid-bass going on, similar to the SuperMix overall, just a slight bit more. And that combined with a bit less mid-treble, less upper treble going on generally, I think you could call this a ever so light, warm-shifted V-shaped signature overall. And bringing me directly to the treble, and as you can see by graph, this extends past 10K easily. And to my ear, this definitely is the case. It does extend past 10K. And I think the coupler shows it to reach like 15K or so before dipping. And then there's another peak at like 18K or something like this after that. Honestly, it's not audible to my ear. I think this plateau at like 15K is kind of realistic. I would say this probably reaches 14K to my ear before dipping. So you do get most of the upper treble you ever want. And it doesn't lag in any way. And overall, I think what I can say about the treble, what I really did enjoy, it sounds super organic. The light peak, again, at like 8.5K or what this is here, it doesn't come off as that strongly pronounced, but it also doesn't come off as lacking in any way. Means overall the treble signature is super organic. It just sounds very, very nice. It sounds natural, doesn't sound recessed. It's just organic is the best word I can give you here, and really there isn't much I can complain at all. Even the lower treble department, where you can see the SuperMix having a few more dB there, which can help with clarity for female vocals, but overall, I mean, I didn't really miss it at all. This just definitely comes off as the more natural and more organic sounding compared to SuperMix. And my personal preference here would probably still be SuperMix, because I do like it a bit more bright. But then the overall treble representation and signature here is just, it's awesome, and I really don't see anybody faulting the Define for its treble. Bringing me to the mids, and these are just rock solid, what should I say? There isn't much I can complain here. There's a light bleed of bass into the mids, but it really isn't too bad. And it does cost them probably some definition and clarity. But at this price point, honestly, I don't really complain. It is still overall, still pretty clear vocals, and the slight warmth is definitely what most people would prefer. My personal preference again would be a bit less, because I like the definition that it gives you for the in the mid department. But this is really, it's rock solid, and I really can't complain at this price point. Next, bringing me to bass. And as stated in the midsection, I mean, you can see it is bleeding slightly into the mids, but really just ever so slightly, and that means you do get a nice mid base, and it is generally coming off as full and meaty, but at the same time I would also say it doesn't defy anything. It is pretty, I want to say, like mainstream tuning in terms of how this is handled, and some people will probably want a bit better definition, while others might still want a bit more mid bass. But I think this, again, strikes a very nice ground between having mid-bass and having sub-bass, but not bleeding too much into the mids overall. Unfortunately, on the technical side, I'm not sure this is not the fastest mid-bass IEM out there. Definitively cheaper sets I've heard do a bit better bass representation here, but it's also not slow or sluggish in any way. And that means the only issue we really have with bass is that the sub-bass quality ain't the greatest. Again, throwing on my benchmark track Interstellar's Mountains, there's a bass drop starting at 2 minutes 10, and it rolls off all the way to 220 Hz or even below that at 2 minutes 16. And this manages 2 minutes 14 and a half on louder volume, and on quieter volume it's 2 minutes 14, 13 and a half if you listen to a bit quieter, which isn't that great. I have heard other IEMs that manage at louder volume 2 minutes 16, and even at medium volume like 2 minutes 15 and a half, so this is not great, but it gets the job done in most tracks. Like, you do notice there's sub bass and it does give you some rumble, but it doesn't give you the best quality bass. Next, technicality-wise, we talk about soundstage, layering, and imaging. And again, this is rock solid here. It has a decent stage, it doesn't feel too cramped. There's some room where instruments is happening, but it never feels huge, it's never big, but also never claustrophobic. So I would say it's probably slightly above average in that sense. And that combined with the layering, that most of the time is 3 layers. But again, it better mix stuff like some of the jazz tracks that are in my benchmark library here. I mean, yeah, this is absolutely fine. It gives me 5 layers there as well, which again at $100 is pretty damn good. And combined with imaging, that also is absolutely nicely enough for gaming. And again, I usually try to game something, and I tried to game Sandstorm, and Hunt Showdown worked like a charm. I didn't really have to learn anything new, just sounded as I expected. It gave me the directions of shots, like, just worked nicely. So again, this can definitively game with a rock solid imaging. Then separation, dynamics, and coherence. And I have to say, separation is not amazing on this. It's probably also due to its V-shaped signature here. And something like the Super Mix definitively does separate this easily. But its overall is really not bad at all, considering the price points. However, what I do like about it is the dynamics. This comes off as pretty damn dynamic for an overall IEM that is like hybrid department here. So that means passages that are supposed to be quiet are pretty quiet. Loud passages are pretty loud. And if you have something in between, it is also nicely captured there. So that means while this is probably not as good as some of the good single DD sets, for a hybrid side it has really good dynamics overall. And really, I didn't like dynamics at all. And also on the coherent side here, I mean, what should I say? Like, I don't really know if I'll be able to tell the BAs apart from the bass here. It's definitively one of the more coherent sets that I have heard. And again, considering the price point for $100, I don't think you will ever complain about the coherence this IEM has. Which then brings me to a verdict, and as you've heard in this review so far by my tonality, there is not much to complain at this price point. At $100, it comes with a pretty mainstream signature, but good one in that, without complaints basically in any area. It should fit most people well, albeit, as I said, also the nozzle is a tiny bit long. And in build, there's also no real issue here. Again, there's my small concern about the pressure hold here, how well that holds up over time. But again, I have not have any reports of this where I read people had complaints about this. So this is just, let's take it as a minor concern I have. But it doesn't really make up for the fact that this thing comes with an awesome accessory set that gives you spin fit type grips, it gives you foam tips, it gives you at $100 and really nicely smooth cable with interchangeable connector. Yeah, this is an instant recommendation at this $100 price point, which is like, I think in euros, it's like 92 or something like that. So it's easy rec. This is definitively the best, let's say, influencer corporation I have seen so far. which, as you can see by my YouTube videos, I haven't gotten so many because they don't send it to me, and I usually only buy these that I think look they're worth it to me. And this one certainly is. Which makes me surprised because Zeos taste usually is going for bass, bro, bass. And then put some 8K energy in there for why not, 8K is awesome. So I haven't really wiped with many of Zeos things that he did like, but this one here, I can see why he put his name on this. This is definitively one of those IEMs. At its price bracket, it's kind of moving the bracket upwards, due to tuning, due to accessories, and really all 100 Hirschsprachs IEMs in the future need to compete with this in its accessory set. And that's why I'm recommending it, because the accessory set is great, the build is good, the cable is good, and there's not really anything speaking against it. And with some EQ, you can also get the bass flatter, you can make it a bit more bright, and the mids are rock solid enough so you never will miss anything. And yeah, that's why, again, recommend it, and yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions, recommendations, or criticisms, please leave a comment below. Spector out.